topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Churchill said, "Those who fail to learn from history are condemned to repeat it." Kevin Hallinan believes that certainly applies to business. Welcome to Winning Business Radio, here at W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. And now, your host, Kevin Hallinan.
Thanks for joining in again today. I am Kevin Hallinan, and welcome back to Winning Business TV and Radio on W4CY.com. We're streaming live on Talk4TV.com, and of course, we're available on Facebook. We're streaming live. That's at Winning Business Radio. And we are available in podcast after the live show in pretty much whatever platform is your favorite for podcasts. That's YouTube, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, and the list goes on. The mission of Winning Business Radio and TV, as regular viewers and listeners know, is to offer insights and advice to help people avoid the mistakes of others. That's to learn best practices, the how-tos, the what-tos, the what-not-tos, and I believe to be challenged and hopefully to be inspired by the successes of others. Those are consultants, coaches, advisors, authors, founders and owners, entrepreneurs, people with expertise. But, virtually every successful person that I've ever had a chance to talk to has had some form of failure in their lives and careers. So while we all have to get our knees skinned once in a while, I'm driven to keep those scrapes from needing major surgery. Let's endeavor to learn from history so we don't repeat it. I've spent the better part of my career equipping businesses to grow, from solopreneurs to small and medium-sized companies, all the way up to the Fortune 50. I've seen some of those companies win, and to varying degrees, I've seen some fail. I've had the opportunity to rub elbows with some of the highest performing people around and with some who probably should have found other professions. In my own businesses, I've had lots of success, but of course some failures too. And I like to think I've learned a lot from those experiences. So you're going to hear from me, my opinions and insights, but I'd rather you hear from others. Those are experts, again, the consultants, coaches, business owners, advisors, authors. And today we have a treat, at least in my opinion. Guys, we'll let them decide afterwards if it was a treat or not. I have two guests, both longtime friends and colleagues, Walker McKay and Matt Nettleton. We, the three of us, met over 20 years ago while attending Sandler conferences in Baltimore, Maryland. We attended those conferences about 3 times a year, often sitting in on the same professional development workshops that were designed to equip us to better help our respective clients, and of course, to help them grow their businesses, help us grow our businesses. We also began meeting together at the behest of our bosses at the time with a smaller group of professionals within the Sandler universe in a form of mastermind sessions. They actually called those good to great sessions. And it was through those good to great sessions that the three of us realized the need for mutual accountability. And so we began meeting every Friday for a number of years. We'll get into that in a bit. But for now, here's more about Walker McKay and Matt Nettleton. After graduating from Washington and Lee University, Walker McKay began his professional journey in banking. He then transitioned to the commercial real estate industry, where he spent the next 13 plus years honing his skills, business skills, and eventually owning his own agency. In 2003, he realized he could make a career of helping other professionals develop their selling and business skills, and subsequently joined the Sandler Training Organization in Columbia, South Carolina, where he spent the next 11 and a half years, stepping away in 2014 to start the McKay Consulting Group. Walker believes in the power of intentional transformation. After 35 years of calling, networking, and continually being referred to hundreds of clients, and over 20 plus years assisting companies in almost every industry to build world-class sales teams, Walker has designed a sales system that will consistently close business without the client feeling like they're selling or the prospect feel like they've been sold. This system has been customized and personalized for thousands of clients in hundreds of industries. He's a lifelong salesperson, coach, and creator of the No BS Sales School, where he teaches and shares his proven secrets to success for hitting targets, growing revenue, and gaining the respect one deserves. Walker is the host of No BS Sales School podcast, Again, we're available wherever you can find your podcasts. They're there. He's there. And he recently published a book about sales. It's called Some Will, Some Won't, So What? Who's Next? And it's available now on Amazon. We'll talk about that soon. Walker lives in Columbia, South Carolina with his wife of 25 years. Her name is Sally, and they have 2 boys who love to fish and hunt. Matt Nettleton's journey has been shaped by 2 key experiences, his football injuries and discovering his love for sales. The disciplines he honed on the football field help him thrive in his first and often regarded as one of the toughest sales roles, door-to-door vacuum cleaner sales. His natural talent led him to high-ranking sales positions, including a role at Coca-Cola, one of the world's largest consumer brands, and later he took on the intense competition of residential real estate sales. In 1999, Matt joined Sandler Training as a client, where he found its structured approach aligned perfectly with his practical mindset, allowing him to guide others to sales success without relying on empty motivational slogans. Matt is all about pragmatism. Although his motto may be "show me the money," he emphasizes the importance of goals for growth. He says, to do the hard work of selling, my clients need to believe they can achieve their goals. He doesn't work with those satisfied with mediocrity or have a wage slave mentality. I love that. But rather, by following the Sandler method, Matt helps clients enjoy the sales process and achieve results faster. As the president of Sandler DTB, Matt applies the Sandler sales methodology to help clients significantly improve their revenue performance. Over his 20-plus year career, he's helped clients generate more than $3.2 billion in new revenue across industries like software, SaaS, staffing, agriculture, trades, and entertainment. A certified instructor with Sandler Training and certified with Extended Disc and Caliper, Matt specializes in sales organization assessment, sales process development, and leadership programs. Matt also hosts the Default Profitable podcast, interviewing successful small business owners and sharing insights on entrepreneurship. Matt's mission is to empower and inspire entrepreneurs to grow their businesses, their people, and themselves. Matt's married to his wife, Jessica, and they have 3 children and a poodle in Fishers, Indiana. Guys, welcome to Winning Business Radio. That's all we have time for. Just kidding. Long house.
Hot dang, that was a lot.
It was, but it's worth it. People need to understand kind of where you're coming from. So appreciate you guys being here. I know how busy you are. I want to start here, though. All of us grew up in sales. The 3 of us did, although in different industries. Take a minute, each of you. Matt, why don't you go first? Talk about how each of you got into sales as a career.
So I grew up in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. My dad ran warehouses. Mm-hmm. And so I got my first jobs were moving heavy things in warehouses. And because, big dumb guy, I can move heavy stuff. I'm good to go. Unfortunately, when I was playing college football, I ruptured all the ligaments and tendons in both my thumbs.
Nice.
And so I had to I had to have my thumbs fixed. And I was not allowed to lift anything over 25 pounds for 12 weeks. Wow. And when I said to the doctor, who's going to give me spending money for college? He said, listen, I'm fixing your thumbs. I don't know what you're asking me for. I'm like, well, I lift heavy stuff. That's how I make money. Yeah. My parents aren't giving me any money. He said, I don't know, look in the newspaper. And I answered a job that said good money, limited effort, and ended up selling vacuum cleaners door to door.
Limited effort,
which was great because I only worked 8 hours a week.
Perfect. Walker?
I got into sales for all the wrong reasons. I was in college. I had lots of friends. I could drink beer with anybody. People were like, "Oh, you can talk to anybody. You've got lots of friends. You should go into sales. You're great at convincing people of things." A natural, which are, as we all can laugh now, are 3 of the absolute worst reasons to go into sales. And my success absolutely reflected that. So I started in the banking business, a job that I was really not qualified for. I was a snot-nosed kid from college, and all of a sudden I was managing a branch somewhere with all these people who were older than me. And anyway, it was, I don't remember if I quit or got fired, but it didn't last long. I moved to the commercial real estate business very quickly to go make my fortune. And I remember the training that I got there was, there's the desk, there's the street. Those are buildings. Go sell some. That was my first year training. And the advanced training was you need to be the smartest guy in the room and the biggest asshole in the room. I was pretty good at being number two, not so good at being number one. And that really wasn't great advice. It didn't turn out to be great advice for me. So I struggled along with that until I got some help.
So the joke is, have you told your parents you're in sales yet?
Yeah.
Right. No. Waiting for Thanksgiving at the end of the meal. So my story is you guys have heard it, but I was in school for electrical engineering, and my dad tapped me on the shoulder, said, "Hey, I need a sales guy." And my dad and I hadn't been close at the time, and I thought it was a great opportunity to spend more time with him. And it turned out that turned out to be true. But he said, you're going to be a sales guy. Well, I didn't know anything about selling. I had done some things. I'd sold seeds door to door as a Boy Scout to make some money, and at fundraising and school and things like that. I was pretty good at that, but I knew nothing about really selling. And living in Massachusetts, turned out my territory was Maine, Vermont, and northern New Hampshire. All right, Walker, you know Maine because you hunt there, but there aren't a lot of people in those. I mean, there are, but to you and I, to the rest of us that come from metro areas, there aren't a lot of people. So I would drive from one stop to the next. I'll get there. Okay. But I would drive from one stop to the next, hour and a half between stops, and they were all cold calls. Now, these were people that knew us, but we were trying to sell them to kind of come back in the industry in that territory. There hadn't been somebody up there for a long time. We were selling foam products, anything soft that you could sit on or package things in. Fascinating business, but his training was very similar. There's the phone. There's the car. He gave me his old car. Here's a card, but don't spend more than X dollars. Fill your tank whenever you need it. And I was just driving around, and I was hitting these really small shops and not being very successful because my training was, the same.
Yeah.
All right. Take a second before we get into the meat here and talk about how each of you got into sales training.
Walker?
So a friend of mine was fishing with him one day, and he said, I hired a sales coach. I said, really? I said, why the hell do you need a sales coach? You're great at sales. You know a ton of people. You got lots of friends. You convince people of stuff. Why do you need sales training? He said, well, I think I could do better. I was like, that's crazy. And I was sure that he'd gotten ripped off. And so I called the sales coach and said, I want to come talk to you. I said, my friend gave you money, and I think you ripped him off. And I want to come have a conversation. So my arrogant self went over to go sit down with him. And 30 minutes later, he asked me, he said, you're in commercial real estate? I said, yeah. I said, you must be making at least $1 million a year. And I'm like, no. And he said, $500,000. I'm like, no. He said, 250. And I said, well, I hope to this year. And he said, why not $1 million? And I began to spew out these reasons, Columbia, South Carolina, bad economy, this and that. I look up, and he's giving me the stop sign. I said, what? And he said, suppose I told you I thought all those were excuses.
Oof.
And I was like, oh, shit. And he was right. And probably 15 minutes later, I was crying in his office what a loser I was. And I wrote him a check to hire me, and the check, or for me to hire him, and the check bounced, but he kept me anyway. So it was quite a day. Best decision I made, though. Really good. Except for marrying my wife, of course.
Well, that's a given.
Because she's listening, and I know that. That's true, honey. Yours is first.
Matt?
Well, I did not marry Walker's wife, so I don't have that decision to fall back. I was selling residential real estate. I had been in the business for a couple of years. I was top 2% in the world for Century 21. And we had a kid. My wife and I had a kid. And I realized that the hours that I was working to be successful would result in my kid knowing that he had a father, unaware of what his father looked like or what his name was. I was working a lot of hours, early, late, evenings, weekends. And so I showed up I responded to an ad that was still one of my favorite ads of all time. It was, our standards are high. It may be time to up yours.
Love that.
And I called in, had a conversation. The guy said, well, what do you actually want to accomplish? I said, well, I'd like to make the same money and work half as much. And he said, well, I'm not sure we can do that. I said, well, I'm willing to give it a try. Nobody else has the plan. And so a year later, as I sat back and reviewed my decision, I was actually disappointed to realize that I had worked half as much, didn't work any nights or weekends, which in residential real estate is fairly rare. But I had made $1,000 more. So I had screwed up and not hit my goal. I had achieved more.
You outpaced.
Dang it.
Outpaced.
Dang it.
That's amazing.
No.
All right.
How about you?
All right, we're going to take our first break. It'll be about 60 seconds. We'll come back. I'll tell my story. We'll be back in just a minute with Matt Nettleton and Walker McKay.
You're listening to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan on W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. Don't go away. More helpful information is coming right up, right here on Winning Business Radio.
Have you ever dreamt of being on the radio? Well, now is your chance. Be a radio show guest on the #1 ranked internet radio station and promote you and your business for free. Yes, you heard it, free. Business advertising right here on W4CY.com. Call 561-506-4031 now to get booked on one of our shows. That's 561-506-4031. Get your free advertising now.
And now back to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan, presenting exciting topics and expert guests with one goal in mind, to help you succeed in business. Here once again is Kevin Hallinan.
All right, we're back with Matt Nettleton and Walker McKay. My story was I had been a recruiter working for a company that grew like a weed, went from the suburbs into downtown Boston and took up 2 floors of this building. There were 30 recruiters. Turned out I was the #1 recruiter. I was crushing it. I was doing training. It wasn't good training. It was training. It was good enough, but all I knew at the time. And I decided I wanted a management role, but there was no room in that company. They liked me. I liked them. They didn't want me to leave. I didn't really want to leave, but I wanted a management role. So took another position in a boutique firm in the suburbs of Boston. My timing was terrible, though. It was about 10 days before 9/11. So 9/11, you guys remember, it was terrible. Nobody could sell anything. At least I couldn't. Nobody was traveling. Nobody was using agencies to hire. And so that year, 01 to 02 was the worst selling year of my career. I went from the top thinking, making money, killing it, big guy, big man on campus, to I couldn't sell my way out of a wet paper bag. And I had a crisis of confidence. And I had been asking around and is it time for me to get professionally trained? And I'd met this woman who owned another recruiting agency who actually had made me an offer, and I turned her down to take the one I took. In hindsight, I wish I had worked for her. I went back to her and said, how did you, get as successful? You did some sales training, didn't you? And she referred me to Sandler. And the conversation of me being trained, the guy that hired me he sized me up pretty quickly. He saw a guy that had 4 kids in private school and needed to make money. So the conversation quickly went to, well, why don't you work for us? And, that's the story. Never look back. One of the best decisions professionally. Absolutely.
So you to go get training and they hired you instead.
They did.
I remember that story.
Only because they saw a guy that was needy and had to succeed. Wasn't that bright?
All the right qualities.
Exactly. Fit the suit, Johnny Bravo. All right. Knowing what we all know now today about being really professionally trained sellers in terms of how those professionally trained sellers should behave and what they should expect from their prospective clients. What's the biggest change that each of you made when you started to internalize what we now teach?
Go ahead, Matt.
So the biggest change that I made. So my first professional sales role, I was with Coca-Cola USA, which is Coke in the cup, not Coke in the can. Those are 2 different companies. Okay. And we had 95% market share of non-Pepsi owned restaurant business.
Okay. Just don't screw it up.
Right. So you're doing pretty well. If you got 95% share, there's a pretty good
down, baby.
You're not getting that last 5%. There's like a reason. So I'd go into restaurants and I'd be talking to somebody, hey, you're using Pepsi. They're like, yeah, well, I had a cousin that got through a nasty divorce with this guy that lives in Kokomo, and he's related to the bottler, and I'd never use you guys because of that. There's nothing I can do with that. So I had a mindset when I got out of working for Coke that the market was fairly finite and that it was hard to take business from other people. And the single biggest mindset shift that I've had since I became a Sandler trainer was the realization that there are more businesses within 1 mile of the front door of my office than I could serve in a lifetime. And in fact, in Indianapolis, in the 317 area code, there are 24,000 employee ID numbers who have reported revenue of $2 to $50 million, which is my primary market.
Wow.
So I'm pretty sure I can't service 24,000 businesses.
No.
Wow.
So, Walker?
Mine, I kind of referenced it when I described how I found sales training. My biggest revelation was the excuses that I was making. I've been saying them for so long. The people around me have been saying things for so long, like, the economy sucks, or those clients an asshole, or this is a problem, or, nobody's buying this, or we might as well not even try. And once I began to recognize, and it's very obvious when I say them now, but at the time, it's what everybody around me was saying too, and nobody actually had the courage to call me out on it. So when all of a sudden, my coach said that you're making excuses, all of a sudden I became hyper aware. And so I replaced my language of they won't, it'll never, it's impossible to, with I haven't figured out how to yet. I hadn't figured out how to make $1 million in this business yet. I hadn't figured out how to get that guy to call me back. I hadn't figured out how to make this work. And I found those to be the most empowering words I've ever had. And it's helped me own a lot of the issues that I bring to the damn thing.
Yeah. Mine's similar. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish.
So I believe that when you say something like, I can't, it'll never, they'll never, your brain goes, yeah, that's it. But when you say, I hadn't figured out how to yet, your brain goes, yeah, we haven't figured that out yet. It kind of begins to work in the background. Oh, maybe. How about you, Ken? Sorry.
Yeah, mine's similar. It's abundance versus scarcity, Matt, as you just referred to. The number of organizations that are targets are infinite, right? And we couldn't possibly service them if we closed them. So, versus there's nobody, they don't hire us. They don't use sales training. They're too big. They're too small. They probably have somebody on board. It's all the pre-qualifying we do. But the other part of it was, from a practical perspective, is knowing why you win and knowing why you lose and learning to change behavior, right? Keep doing the stuff you win at. Stop doing the stuff you lose at. That was big for me. All right. Let's see. So, Matt, you floated the idea to Walker and me recently that we should have a conversation about accountability and record it. And I said, let's go one more. Let's do a live show. It'll be recorded anyway. What was behind that idea?
So I think the idea of the live show, or the idea of the conversation around accountability, came from your interview of Walker. And I think if we go back to 2023, when we met was in June, we were in a business with an exceptionally high failure rate.
Yeah.
We were still dealing with
2003, not 2023.
Yeah, 2003.
Right.
Although it's still a high failure business, but yes.
Yeah, it's still a high failure business.
Yeah.
And when we were coming to the conference, I had been given some advice about, put together a list of all the things you want to do and all the things you're going to change. You're going to have 3 lists, and then one person just kind of casually threw in, and, oh yeah, by the way, find somebody else trying to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish and stay in touch with them because they'll help you. And as it turns out, the first half of that advice was complete bull, but the second half of that advice was incredibly valuable. And that led to our Friday phone calls for probably 2 years.
Yeah.
I don't know that we missed very many of them.
Nope.
I don't know that we missed any of them. But those Friday phone calls were a great kind of a clarifier of what it was that I needed to do in order to succeed and remain in the business that I had chosen to be in.
Excellent. I mean, we're going to get in the weeds of it in just a minute here, but I remember one of us said, Matt, it might have been you, I don't know, but somebody said, I'm not sure this is working. I feel like I'm taking more out of these calls than I'm giving. And it turned out we all felt that way.
Yes.
Right.
100%.
That was huge.
Yeah, we all felt like the other two were doing more lifting than we were.
Yeah.
Which was cool. And it sometimes it was, at each point, one of us was, anyway, it was all cool.
Yep.
Worked out
Yeah.
great.
One would be doing really well and two would be doing well. One would be struggling with something and, it would just keep going around like that. And I believe that was a turning point for the three of us. So just for context, that Good to Great group, we were encouraged to get together, but we met each other and we started hanging out and we'd go out to dinner together and in groups, but, we'd share our successes and failures. And then we started to formalize it. And I want people to hear about what those calls sounded like. I know we called them our accountability calls. And Matt, what would we actually do on those calls?
I'm not sure who came up with the format, although I think it might have been me. It might have been Walker. It might have been you. It didn't really matter in the end.
Yep.
But what we agreed was that we would have a 30-minute call that would be at the same time every week. And it was a no negotiation. You do not miss. And that we would each take 10 minutes, 5 minutes to talk about something that we had done that was we thought went well, and 5 minutes to talk about something we thought we screwed up. And we would just go around the horn. And while you were talking, the other two people had the opportunity to jump in and give you feedback and opinions on what it was you were talking about, whether or not you wanted them. That's good. Yeah,
Walker, what do you want?
A lot of times I just didn't want the opinions. I'd already figured out that I sucked. I didn't need you guys to confirm it.
Right. You're right. You do stink.
I remembered it being some format of share a lesson we've learned, share a victory that we had, and what's something you're working on you want advice on. That's somehow.
So that's what happens. That's the catchphrase that came out of that, right? We all have these catchphrases and one-liners.
Yep.
But yeah, I think we're saying the same thing. All right, let's define accountability. How would each of you define accountability?
Walker?
It's basically saying out loud what you're going to do, and then have and I think the only person who can hold you accountable is yourself. But we, in our group of, I'll quit of that. The only person who holds yourself accountable is yourself, right? But you say out loud something that you're going to do, and the other people in the group offered support, be that negative support, which my biggest fear is y'all say, screw you, you're out of the group, you big loser, or or say, way to go, you did what you said you were going to do.
Yep. Love you like a brother, but you're dead to me, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Matt,
so it's being accountable. It's being responsible for our actions, right? We say it, we're going to do it. And we had a good partnership because, we have different personalities. We're similar in some ways, but we're very different in other ways. I'm not tall and you guys are smart.
I'm not bald. I'm not bald.
But it was a good chemistry and it worked. We were honest. We were trustworthy. We cared about each other. I think that's a big ingredient. So who do we think needs accountability? I mean, lots of people watching this, lots of people listening, and even more will watch and listen later. Right. So who needs accountability?
Anybody that wants to grow in something. I mean, whether you're an athlete or whether you just want to get stronger, or you're business and you're ambitious and you just need the outside feedback. And the being the big part of the accountability to me was the accountability to the group, right? And that was the part that was the big stake for me.
Yeah, we didn't want to disappoint each other.
Yeah. I think one of the things we did very well too was have three people.
Yeah, Matt, you had a good phrase for that.
What was it, Matt?
What was the phrase? I don't remember the phrase, but I know that I know the thing with the three people that really made it work was it's easy to fool one person at a time.
Right.
It is very difficult to fool two people.
Yeah.
And to the question of who needs accountability, I have yet to find any situation where, what it was told, I was told I needed to find a swim buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I needed to find somebody that was going through what I was going through and would drag me along with them. And as I talked to people, it was made clear to me that 3 is better than 2 and 4 is too many.
Mm.
So you can have a one-to-one accountability relationship. You can have a 3-person accountability relationship, but in the words of the guy that explained this to me, you cannot have a 4-person accountability group. It's nice and you can have a nice conversation, but you are not going to generate meaningful accountability having 4 people involved in a conversation.
Interesting.
That is interesting.
So I would say anybody that is trying to accomplish something can use an accountability group, not to learn things, but to make sure that they're applying what they've learned.
Mm.
Right. So if you're, and I think we're all familiar with Vistage and Vistage style groups, where you have a group of people that get together and learn something. Well, when those guys leave those groups, one of the things I know is the most effective groups that I've worked with, they'll have 2 or 3 owners that get together afterwards in small subgroups and talk about how they're improving and what they're doing differently. And it's just, my son, when he was doing high school sports and college sports, he had 2 guys that they agreed they were going to work out. And it's easy for one guy to convince the other guy they don't want to work out. It's hard for all 3 people to take a day off.
Mm.
Well, also, if you only have 2 and pretend you're running, right? You're supposed to meet somebody in the morning and one person doesn't show up, you really are screwing, then the other person is let down. But if you have 3 and one doesn't show up, then the other 2 can continue to perform.
That's good.
And leave you behind and replace you.
Yes, right.
If necessary. Hey, we're going to take our second break. We'll be back, everybody, with Matt Nettleton and Walker McKay in 60 seconds.
You're listening to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan on W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. Don't go away. More helpful information is coming right up, right here on Winning Business Radio.
The YP.com website is your local search engine. If you're looking for a good restaurant, it can help you find the right one nearby with ratings and reviews. Or if your car breaks down, you can use the YP app to find the closest repair shop. Or maybe you're just looking for something to do on a Friday night. Well, it has great local coupons for all sorts of things in your area. No matter what, when, or where, if you're looking for something, YP Local Search can help you find it. So go to YP.com or download the app to search local, find local, and save local.
And now back to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan, presenting exciting topics and expert guests with one goal in mind, to help you succeed in business. Here once again is Kevin Hallinan.
All right, we're back with Walker and Matt. Matt, you mentioned something I thought was great. I wrote it down. We need a partner, not a policeman. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So accountability is not something that you do to somebody. It's something you do with somebody, I think. Mm-hmm. Right. We never had like punishments. Nobody got noogies for not making their cold calls or,
right.
I mean, it was, hey, listen, this is what I'm going to do. And then next week it was, hey, last week you said you were going to do this. Did you do it? And if you didn't do it, you were embarrassed. Mm-hmm. And nobody was going to let it slide, but there were no physical like trials or
right. no fines. Yeah. No public flogging.
Because that was imposed upon yourself.
Yes.
That was what happened to you because of not doing the work. That was going to happen to yourself, right?
Yeah.
Well, the problem with no accountability is it's easy to rationalize all the reasons you didn't do the work.
Right. Yeah.
But
busy.
When you call up your accountability group, and the first person that talks says, well, here's what I did.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, Dan, that's what he said he was going to do. And now when I go, I got to say, I didn't do what I said I was going to do. Yeah. Maybe they'll forget me this week.
Maybe they'll run out of time.
We could run out of time. Right. But that didn't always happen.
Pepper the rest of it.
I don't remember it ever happening.
Damn.
Always got 5 more minutes for the last guy.
That's right.
So that's the thing, I think with accountability, you can't be looking for external motivation, external punishment. With accountability, you have to have internal, intrinsic motivation, and you're just confirming what's going on. And you got to find people that also have internal, intrinsic motivation. We've been around a long time. We've seen a lot of these accountability groups fail miserably.
Yeah.
All right. What about frequency? How often should people talk? We chose weekly. It worked really well for us, I think.
Walker?
I don't know that it matters. It probably depends upon what your goals are. I think weekly for salespeople is probably a good thing. Sometimes for business owners, it could, if you're having that kind of same thing, maybe it's once a month or once a quarter. I think it depends upon, we were talking about behavior, right? How many dials and how many meetings and sales calls and that kind of stuff.
Which, and we were looking to close business like weekly, monthly at the minimum, right? Yeah.
But if you're running a business and you've got, longer term goals, then maybe quarterly is enough, or twice a year. I think it depends upon what you're trying to do. Longer term goals, you can have more time in between the meetings. Thoughts, Matt? Or Kevin, thoughts?
I was just going to say, what about content? Should it be, methodology? Is it phone? Is it Zoom? Is it in person? That probably depends
I want
too,
to back up to frequency.
Yeah.
Because I really think that for most people, having a weekly conversation of 15 minutes is, 15 to 30 minutes max is something that they have to be willing to commit to. And the reason is we all overthink what we can accomplish in 12 months and underthink what we can accomplish in 1 week.
Oh yeah.
And so a lot of the people that lose sight of their goals, because listen, everybody knows it's a ritual. You set goals the last week of December, you fail on your goals the second week of February,
right?
You ignore your goals by the first week of March. I mean, it's just, it might as well be written in stone. But if you could say, hey, listen, I know I have my annual goal, but here's what I think I can accomplish by the end of the first quarter. And here's what I'm going to do this week. And when we talk next week, here's what I'll commit to have it done. Right? It doesn't matter if you're running a warehouse or you're an accountant or you're a salesperson or you're just working out. Like the frequency that you talk confirms the amount of time that you can go off track.
That's good. That's really good.
Yeah, nicely said.
That's why you're on this call, Matt.
I appreciate that.
That's a nugget right there. That is a nugget.
I appreciate you guys inviting me. After you kicked me out of our accountability group.
It's funny. I feel like Matt, I'm learning so much from Matt today. I'm the one that's sucking ass.
All right. So does it matter if it's a phone call, a coffee, Zoom call?
I don't think so. I think face-to-face is good, which is why I like Zoom. If I have a preference, it's Zoom or face-to-face. Zoom for time save. I like that better, but I don't know that it matters. It's doing something.
Whatever works. All right. Matt, you just talked about goals. Walker, how important are goals?
I guess it depends on how much you value your time and where you're trying to go. I think that, well, the thing about goals, right, is what do you want to accomplish? And the important thing, I think we'd all agree, is they've got to be written down, meaningful. I mean, there's the old SMART goals thing. I keep trying to come up with something better than SMART goals, but
I hate SMART goals.
I hate SMART goals. I fucking hate them.
So how about we do dumb goals? How about we do dumb goals?
Dumb goals.
All right, what you
dumb
got?
goals. So it has to be something that's directly in your control.
Directly.
Love it.
It's got to be uniquely described by you. You got to be able to measure it. You got to be able to manage it. And it has to be attached to a burning desire.
Oh, this is so good.
God, that's good. And I love it because he even spelled dumb wrong. That's just the best.
No, that's the best part.
That's awesome.
You're smart enough to spell dumb wrong. I mean, that's freaking amazing. I love that.
All right. So why don't I just tell Matt what his goals are, or Walker, why don't I just tell you what your goals are?
Well, why not, Kevin? I've spent way too much time talking. Why don't you tell me why that doesn't work when you give somebody their goals?
Because I'm not excited about what somebody gave me. I'm excited about, or potentially excited about, what I want to accomplish. Right? We always talk about personal goals as well as professional goals, and I've told people for 20-something years, yeah, you got to have professional goals, but really they're in support of your personal goals, right? So what do you want to accomplish personally? That's way more important because it's personal. And everybody's different. There are some categories that are similar, right? Who do you want to spend time with? What do you want to do financially? Is it physical? You want to make a difference in the community? Family, right? Depending on where you are. I want to spend time with family. To Matt's point earlier, I don't want to spend all my time working. I want them to know me, right? I have grandkids now. I want to spend time with them. I don't want to be working all the time. And as much as I work a lot, I do have limits. So if working 35 hours and making the same is a goal, why not pick that goal? If maxing out a 401k plan is important to somebody, why not that goal? If taking a trip to Europe in 12 months is important, why not pick that goal? Because then if it's important enough, aren't people encouraged to do what they got to do professionally to make the money they need personally? And this applies, what we're talking about here applies more to salespeople, because those of us in our profession, we sell more, we make more. So it probably doesn't apply to a salaried worker. They can double their effectiveness and get a raise at the end of the year.
But it does.
Go ahead.
And it really doesn't matter what you do. You in the end, you're either controlled by choices or conditions. You get to pick.
Well, that's good.
Essentially, you get to choose whether or not you want to live by choice. And the goals that you set are the choices that you make. June 23rd of 2023, my wife asked me how much I weighed, which is not something I could ever
Did she ask
her.
you if you had reached your goal weight yet?
Yeah, she's like, how much do you weigh? And I'm like, well, that's odd, because I've never said that to you in our 30 years together.
You must be asking that for a reason.
So I told her the number. It was 265, and I had never weighed that much. And she said, geez, that's a lot. What do you think about losing some weight? And I was just about to say something, and she said, here's the thing. I've been looking at doing a diet. Starting July 1st, we're going to do this diet for 90 days. It's completely unsustainable over the long term. But when we're at the end of that 90 days, we can figure out what we want to do for our diet going forward. And so we got to the end of that 90 days. I weighed 214, which was 5 pounds less than I had weighed in college.
That's outstanding.
So unbelievable. But it wasn't a big, complex, kind of, it was, hey, I'm going to do this, and it's going to change the diet that I prepare for dinner. And I know you don't cook. So listen, fatty, you're going to lose a couple pounds. But on the other hand, now, there were a lot of good add-on effects for me. My heart rate's down. My heart rate variability's up. I mean, it's all kinds of good things happened out of it. But it really was a two-person kind of, hey, we agreed on this. Our kids held us accountable to what we said we were going to eat. And we were able to measure and manage the entire process for 90 days. But then we had to make a decision about whether or not we wanted to do that on an ongoing basis, which we unfortunately have.
Yeah.
Unfortunately have.
What's funny is, and you said it, I'll make it clear, your goals have to matter to you, right?
Yeah.
And so when people say, I'll make $100,000 or $500,000, but then it's, why do you want to do that? Why do you really care? And then, no, really, why?
And what happens if you don't?
What happens if you don't?
Yeah.
And so if you're not excited about your goals, so if the company says you need to sell, your goal is you need to sell $1 million this year, and you go, and then they drop balloons and the music goes, yay, $1 million, right? And you go, what the hell does that mean to me? And so it's much, if somebody were to say to you, I mean, oftentimes if you had a goal and you didn't know the company's goal, and you knew why it had to matter and why you cared, your goal is probably going to be higher than the company's goal anyway.
Yeah.
And I know I will, well, because I work for myself now, but I will fight to the death to make stuff happen for me. But maybe not so much if it's just, if I don't give a shit as the company, right? I mean, which is honestly, right? Sales is all about your prospect. Goals are all about the person to whom it impacts. There's got to be a personal, compelling reason, a gap between where they are and where they want to be that has to be closed. Those are the best kind of goals.
I would add that the only time I think that a goal could be not about the individuals is if it's for someone they care about.
Oh, right on.
Right. So maybe I don't need the additional money, but my wife does, or my kid does for school or something, right?
Just know we all do that shit for ourselves too.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you guys remember, we used to have an assessment that measured goal orientation on a scale of 0 to 9.
Yep.
And we were all like, oh, 9 means you have a super high goal orientation.
Yeah.
Well, you can have a super high individual goal orientation. But I had one of my most successful sales reps had a goal orientation of 0. I'm like, dude, I don't get it. Like, why would you do any of this? This all sucks. What are you trying to accomplish? And all he could talk about was the importance of his team winning.
Wow.
And so there are people that have a high goal orientation for the team. But what I think goal orientation really is all about is we have a spark of something that we see ourselves as that we're willing to chase.
That's good.
And if you don't have it because you don't have goals, well, then you're never going to light that spark. But if you do have it, the clearer your goal and the more people hold you accountable to painting that picture, the more likely you are to actually accomplish that goal, which is where the accountability really kicks in.
That's good.
I have a slightly different spin on that. I believe the person that makes the goal, that says that by the end of this, I want this to happen. I believe the person, once you reach that goal, you're a different person than the person that made it. That this is the fire you go through to get there.
It's the carving of the statue.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We talk about the byproducts of the goal, right? Now you know how to lose weight and stay healthy, Matt. So the goal was get to a certain weight, but the byproduct, right? You know how to stay there. You know how to, what behaviors you had to change. Hey, we're almost out of time. I have one more question. Actually, 2 more questions. First is, what book are you reading? And based upon how far are you into that book right now, what's your key takeaway?
Go ahead, Matt.
I'm not reading Walker's book yet, although he is the #1 seller on Amazon in new business.
Yes, he is. Yes,
#1 new business seller right here.
Some will, some won't.
I've not received my copy yet.
Damn it.
The book that I'm actually reading right now that's been pretty interesting to me is The Psychology of Money.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Housel.
Yeah.
Great book.
Great book. And it's interesting because a lot of the book is about the psychology of planning with failure in mind. So
that's good.
Yeah. Walker, other than your own book, Walker, we're not.
Right.
I am not. I have been.
Are you going to read it, by the way?
My book, I've read it 627 times for every edit. And so actually, I found myself flipping through it today, and I realized I don't want to see anything that's wrong with it. So
I don't blame you.
I actually am rereading a book, which I hadn't been in that practice. Once I'd read a book, I'd put it down forever.
Yep.
And this is not a business book. It's the Confederacy of Dunces. I don't know if you guys have read the
Yes.
No.
O'Toole, I think is his name.
Yep.
And it is
O'Toole, yep.
Laugh out loud funny. I take it with me to the deer stand, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I've been away from the business books for a couple of months, but that's what I'm reading right now. How about you, Kevin?
Love that book.
Yeah, I've got 3 books going right now. The Unbreakable Investor, Charles Payne, Atomic Habits, and The Compound Effect. Both, I mean, all 3 good. One is about money, obviously. Atomic Habits about small changes. Compound Effect, really, too. It's just as easy to set a bad habit as a good habit. So why not pick the good habit? And he gives you tools for doing that. That's James Clear. Powerful story, too, of his life.
Thought I would give a shout out to a podcast that I have loved. It's the Founders Podcast.
Oh, yes. That's good.
I'm a subscriber to that, but this guy he reads biographies of people, the founders of companies, and then he does somewhere between probably an hour and 20 minutes on the things that founders of other companies need to know from that book. And it is super interesting. He's very excited about it. He's an expert in so many things, and he can recall. He'll start talking about Warren Buffett, and he'll say, "This reminds me of Steve Jobs over here and Jay-Z over there," and all. It's really the Founders Podcast. I'm a big fan.
Awesome. All right, last question. Each of you answer this. Who in the listening and viewing audiences should reach out to you? Why? And then how do they get in touch with you? And Juan's got the contact information in scroll, so maybe we can skip that part.
Walker, go ahead.
So I work with companies typically in the Southeast that have sales teams spread out over 3 or 4 different markets. Typically we sell something expensive and complicated. And the owner is kind of ambitious, a little bit of a maverick, and says we want an unfair advantage in the marketplace. And so we work with them to give them an unfair advantage based upon the sales process they follow.
Excellent. And there's Walker's info right there. It's walker@walkermckay.com is the easiest. Go ahead, Matt.
I work with primarily $2 to $50 million businesses, typically in the Midwest. They are a premium solution compared to their competitors, and they have a burning desire to continue to gain share in their market. It's important to them, and they can't figure out why they're not doing it more quickly.
That's good. And it's matt.nettleton@sandler.com. Guys, thank you so much. Oh, buy the book. Some will, some won't. So what? Who's next? Amazon.com. Walker.
Please buy it. Leave me a review.
Review it. Everybody, come on, review it. All right, guys, thank you. You've been great. This was fun for me, and I hope it was fun for you too.
Super fun. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Matt. Great to be with you guys again.
Walker.
And thanks, everybody, for watching and listening. This is a show about business and often business challenges. If you've got concerns about the sales effectiveness of your company, whether your sales team is one or many, give me a call. You can reach out to me at LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. You can message me, or kevin@winningbusinessradio.com. Our company is Winning Incorporated. We're part of Sandler Training. We develop sales teams into high achievers and sales leaders into true coaches and mentors. We're not right for everybody, but hey, maybe we should talk. Thank you again to engineer and producer Juan for another job well done. Thank you, Juan. Be sure to join next week, Monday, November 18th, when my guest will be Catherine Tague of Influence Digital Media. See you then.
You've been listening to Winning Business Radio with your host, Kevin Hallinan. If you missed any part of this episode, the podcast is available on Talk4 Podcasting and iHeartRadio. For more information and questions, go to winningbusinessradio.com or check us out on social media. Tune in again next week and every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time to listen live to Winning Business Radio on W4CY Radio, W4CY.com. Until then, let's succeed where others have failed and win in business with Kevin Hallinan and Winning Business Radio.